welcome to the RCB show live at 92.5 FM and 94.8 FM throughout West Clare. And we're delighted to be joined by Kevin Frehill now as we part of our championship build-up as we look ahead to all the senior championship football games and the intermediate championship games. Kevin Frehill, the Doora Barefield manager, we're here to look at especially Doora Barefield versus Naomh Eoin in round one of the intermediate championship. And I suppose, Kevin, I'll start to you. I spoke to a player and I spoke to a manager in the past hour in terms of what it's been like in terms of the year so far in 2020, in terms of as a manager, I suppose, trying to put terms in place and plans in an unusual championship. And then I suppose as a player, then I suppose the uncertainty of it all, not knowing whether you will have championship or not, or trying to keep in shape and trying to keep fitness up and trying to get in that mold. But for you in sort of Doora Barefield, I suppose you had a good 2019 reaching the county sort of semi-final, so you're looking to go one step further. This year so far, did you get any sort of football in? Did you get a Gary Cup game in or anything?
We had one game in the Gary Cup at the start of the year, very early days. It was back when the weather was atrocious. It was a game that we didn't actually have a lot of players available for because the under-21 hurling championship was on at the same time. So we kind of were picking for the last year, and this year we a lot of our panel is quite young, so we were taking some of them. But what we had, you couldn't take a lot from the game because it was so early in the season, and the weather was so bad. It wasn't a great outing for us, but it was kind of a game that we were just looking at to get some match practice under the belt. And we had one game, and then I think the following week it was all shut down after that.
And I suppose, Kevin, last year as well, we saw Doora Barefield clinch a minor A football title in terms of that. So an awful lot of players I was at that game are prominent. You have a good underage sort of structure. Keane McDonough, who would have played championship for you last year in Doora Barefield, he was a catalyst. And there were some good players like Ethan Coughlin, Tony Butler that weren't available to you last year due to the age requirements. Those sort of boys now are available to you, and those sort of, I know Tony, I suppose, would have played Kernan Murray for Flannans, and Eaton would have played at a high level in terms of Irish rugby and played at a high level with Barefields as well. So you probably have added some quality youngsters to your squad this year.
Well, I think it's been a feature of the last couple of years. There has been a lot of success in the club underage. So we've added a few players again this year. I suppose turning that success now into adult level is going to be the next step for the club, because it hasn't been a very successful period. Trying to get lads to kind of make that jump up as well. I suppose it's no guarantee sometimes that the guys want to play after they finish in minor and stuff. They're not always that interested. They get pulled by other sports, get pulled, away from the county and stuff as well, not living at home. So, we have a good link between the underage teams. We have one of the guys we brought in on our team, Donovan, was kind of specifically brought in for that role because he had great links with the minor club to try and get as many of the young players through. And last year, we did blood 2 or 3 at least, 17 or 18-year-olds that were kind of, that we, 1 or 2 that we didn't expect to play, and 1 or 2 that we had kind of big hopes for. And we hope to do the same again this year. We have to kind of try and move the club forward that way.
And I suppose, Kevin, you mentioned that about trying to keep on to the talented players, and Barefield have produced really good teams. I remember the team that won the minor before that with the Hannans and Peter Collins, and there were some real quality players like Maurice Nugent there, Mikey Whelan, who he lost to Galway United in the soccer as well. So in terms of, it would have been real top draw players for you in terms of championship. Has there been real sort of additions to Barefield this year? Have any players came back from overseas or from other sports? Have you sort of strengthened your panel? Apart from the youngsters coming up.
Yeah, well, we didn't actually have access to the Hannans last year, which was a big blow for us because Tom had done his cruciate ligament. They were both in America last summer, and they both came back. Tom came back and did his cruciate ligament, and Jack also got injured quite quickly in another knee problem. So we had Jack for the last game, the semi-final against Brecons, for maybe 15 minutes. So two of them is a massive addition for us. That's well, Tom is still on the road to recovery, so he's not really probably going to feature prominently this season. But having Jack back is a huge thing for us. So we've added him. At the start of the season, we had a lot of lads. We had 2 or 3 lads that we were actually going to lose because one was going on Erasmus, Conor Brannock, and we had 1 or 2 more that were travelling for the summer. So that all got stopped as well. So I suppose that was a little bit of a silver lining for us that we managed to keep hold of a couple of players. There was big demands on us last year because both teams, the hurling and the football team, we went to the semi-final and the hurlers went to the final, and some lads just found that a real slog for the summer. So 1 or 2 lads have decided to go with the hurling this year, and 1 or 2 have decided to stick with the football. So there has been a kind of a split of a couple of players. Not for any, they're all very happy, but it was just that they felt they couldn't give full commitment to both and do their best at it. So we've lost 1 or 2 starters from that, but we've also gained. So it'll be a little bit of a different team, but I see it being, same kind of talent available to us again this year.
And I suppose, Kevin, in terms of players and playing a bit of football, and I know a good lot of lads who would have been on the under-20s county panel would have an awful lot of training done in the legs and fitness regime, and would have played a good lot of games over their lads. And you had 3 players in that. You had the goalkeeper, Tom O'Brien, you had Keane McDonough, and you had Owen Tyne as well. So those lads would have played a bit more football than the rest of the team. So that's got to sort of, when you're training with a county squad, even if it's an under-20, you're still going to a high level of training. It's probably just the next step below senior. So that must be a bonus as well to have 3 players who were featured heavily. Like these guys were touch and go. Tom was a starter, and Keane and Owen were basically were touch and go, where they were going to start in most games. So that must be a bonus to have that in your squad anyway.
That's a big bonus, and as you said, Keane and Owen were touch and go for they did make contributions all throughout that kind of championship, and like Owen had a fantastic season for us last year. He was probably our go-to guy a lot of the time for scores, goals, etc. We also had Owen Hanrahan was in with the senior county panel for a while this year, so that was another block of training for him. That it has to be exposed to that kind of level, has to improve you as a player, and that's a real positive for us. We need more lads involved at that level.
Yeah, and I suppose, Kevin, your opponents, Naomh Eoin, they're a sort of dogged sort of an outfit, a traditionalist footballing team, very united, very sort of tight-knit group, they love their football, they cherish it really, and it's sort of religion to them, but they're a sort of feel like a family sort of unit. Everyone is steeped back in football there, but they're a team that have been building. They had a few successful underage teams with the amalgamation, Kilkee, Naomh Eoin, of course. So a good lot of their youngsters would have come up playing football, and would have come up against Barefield and many of the age groups as well, given that there were 3 clubs formed together.
Yeah, and they also were in the amalgamation last year in senior, so that was an exposure for some of their players that were involved in that too, to a higher level again. So we expect a huge challenge. We played them last year in the championship as well, and it was a game that was it was very tight until half time. We got a goal just before half time, and that kind of seemed to change the pattern of the game, but it never felt at any stage that it was it felt like a tight game all the way to the end, even though we pulled away a little bit on the scoreboard. I think that things just went for us that day. So look, we expect a huge challenge against them. They, as you said, great tradition back there. Some of their players have been playing, against at the same level as our players all the way up along, so there's going to be very little difference.
Yeah, and I suppose, Kevin, the format of the championship structure this year, it's quite simply put. Most teams are treating the first game as potentially a knockout game, a be-all, end-all sort of game. Because if you win the first game, you go into your winners round, albeit you're going to be playing a top team, but win that, you're straight through to a semi-final, the quickest route. You can sit back, you're one of those 3 teams in the semi-final, and you can watch the 3-way playoff. You can size up who that 4th potential team is. So there's a bit of advantage, but on the flip side of that, you lose your first game, it's a long route, and possibly you're going to meet the losers of Kildare or Corofin in that 3-way playoff. So that's the place no one wants to be, because obviously either Kildare or Corofin, more likely they're going to be involved in that 3-way playoff, you'd suspect.
Well, they're two top teams that are going to be, I suppose, in the mix towards the end of it. So they are the team. I'm looking at it as I think everyone's looking at it the same. Nobody's really thinking about that loser round at all. I think it's kind of like it's just this year. It's a clear path. It's 4 games all the way to get there, and that's it. It couldn't be simpler, I suppose, in your mind if you're shutting out that losers round, which I'm sure every team is. They don't want to think about that. That's a safety net, but no team is going to approach it thinking about that safety net. It's win at all costs. I think first round of the championship this year, which is I suppose it's a throwback to kind of older times, really.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of leadership and experience, an awful lot of the go-to guys in Barefield will probably be around that 22, 23 age sort of bracket. I remember when Barefield were competing in sort of county finals there back in the earliest of the decade in 2010, 2011, the likes of Ivor White, Christy O'Brien, Johnny O'Brien. They were sort of a bit older in terms of 27, 28-year-olds. You're hoping you can keep them along till they get that stage. But who would be the older sort of guys in the Barefield dressing room, the leaders, the 27 to 28-year-old, 29-year-olds that can sort of, I know Jack and Tom and all those are really experienced guys at Big 20, but they're still 21, 22. They're still young guys in terms of their club footballing career.
Yeah, so we kind of have a lost age group there, I suppose. We from the county finals, the only one we would have left would be with David O'Brien. Is still around at the moment. We kind of seem to have a young kind of group, and then we have an older kind of group, probably around 30, 31, 32, etc. With Kevin Harrington, who he kind of, and Philip Ryan, two of them, for the last couple of years, they've been kind of, the guys that have been committed and have, drove other lads on. They'd be in their 30s now. Both starters last year, and both looking for another great year this year. They were players that transferred into the club in the last number of years, but have really, really added something to the club. And they're the kind of older guys that people look to now at this stage.
Yeah, I suppose in terms of the championship as a whole, we've seen the change into intermediate championship. It is very competitive. It is a very sort of open champion. I mean, people will say last year Brickhounds were the standout team. There's some then you just look at how many lads they have on the Clare senior panel this year. They're not there anymore. It's very open. People are looking at saying this intermediate championship, there could be 5, possibly 6 teams in the running out of the 12 for possible honours. Is that a fair reflection that in terms of Brickens were the standout team this year and probably the last year, but the playing field is more level this year?
I felt that Brecken's, we did give them a good game in the semi-final, but they have a lot of talented individuals, a lot of players on the under 20 panel last year as well, and a lot of players. I think they had 10 or 12, in total involved in county setups at one stage. And that they're kind of they're a team that I suppose you'd have to say that they're going to get better and better. I think this is a kind of a bit of a golden generation for them coming through. In saying that, I felt we gave them a good game last year. I felt Kildysart obviously pushed them really, really close in the final. Kildysart is still there this year, so it's as you said, I think the standard is really, really good. We played Corfin in the league last year as well. They have a couple of outstanding players that go without saying, Jim Malone, etc. So it's even beyond those 3 or 4 teams. It's I feel like it's a really, really competitive championship. No game we played last year was easy. They were all really difficult, and it's every game is going to be a really, really tough battle, I think.
I suppose, Kevin, the goal for Barefield obviously is to get up to that senior status. Mm-hmm. You can see the championship draw in the senior, the 6 games itself. There's no gimme games in that in either, but you're exposing your talented young lads as well to a higher level. But as the saying goes, you have to earn it, and I suppose that's the key. And if you win that intermediate champion, which is the goal for Barefield, as a short, it'll probably stand you in good stead going up, progressing to senior. And obviously, the goal, obviously, Gary Cup, the next step is QC Cup as well. And if you achieve that task of coming into media championship, the roll-on effect following in, then there's a bounce on your step and more young lads want to play, the youngsters want to stay, and then obviously it helps that transition from Gary football up again to QC football.
There's no doubt it's where they want, it's where we want to be. The talent is coming, and I think it's there. It's 19, 20, 21, 22. They are going to be a senior team at some stage. I don't know when that's going to be. We hope it's going to be this year. I think they have too much to not eventually get back to that top table. Gary Cup, we were very close last year to getting back into the Cusack Cup. At the end of the day, we lost to Meg in the semi-final, but early on in it, we were beaten by a point by Kilmahill, and if we got the draw against Kilmahill that day, we actually would have been automatic qualifiers. But it might have been too much too soon for them too, because as you said, when you see the draw for the senior championship, there's probably, there's half and half. Probably the top half are just very exceptional teams, and I think getting through that intermediate championship, if they can get through, then they deserve to be there, and it'll be a real test for up and coming players who I've no doubt are going to mature into top footballers in a couple of years' time.
I suppose lastly, Kevin, before I let you go, in terms of back to Naomh Eoin again, I suppose we have seen in terms of the championship in the last few years, the teams like Kilkee, O'Curry's, for example, Liscannor, teams are probably written off. They always have that big one game in them that they can sort of rise to it. And in terms of knockout football, when it's sort of gone from a group sort of stage, they seem to relish that sort of one game where they can rise for that one game. I suppose Kilkee and Liscannor are renowned artists at it, but Naomh Eoin will sort of feel themselves in that class. So I know you probably say it's a 50-50 game and you want to see yourself as favourites, but I suppose you do realise the threat Naomh Eoin pose as well, and they do have some talented forwards like the Bonvilles and like that have been involved, Magners that have been involved in underage setups as well. So all it takes is one of those guys to catch fire and maybe hit 9 or 10 frees, which they're well capable of, and it becomes a total scrap, really, a dogmire to get to the winners round. I suppose you're probably expecting it to be a real ding-dong battle.
As you said, last year was a group format, so it does take the edge off maybe slightly. This feels more knockout this year, even though there is that safety net there. But as I said, nobody's thinking about that, so it feels like it's do or die on the first day. It's as you said, it's down through history. Any team can win on the day. You have two factors to take into account. Do you perform yourself? That's the first thing. Many teams go out and just completely flat on the day, and then what did the opposition bring against you, I suppose, is the other thing you have to worry about. So as I said, we just expect a huge challenge that day. Teams have had very, very little time to prepare. I think it's made it an even more even championship again. Certain teams haven't had every team has only had a few weeks, I suppose, training and a few weeks together to put stuff together, so it's going to really level the playing field.
On that note, Kevin Frehill, we wish you and Doora Barefield a real prosperous year in 2020. We hope you and your team and your supporters and your management, your backroom team achieve the targets you set out to achieve in this championship, and it is hopefully a prosperous campaign for all involved with Doora Barefield. Best of luck, Kevin.
Thanks a million. Cheers. Bye-bye.
My name is Jim Conlan from RCB. Good afternoon.
We're good to go.
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan from RCB Radio Sport, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM, and online at www.rcb.ie. As we continue our build-up, as we look ahead to the senior and intermediate championship, we especially look at the tie now between Naomh Eoin and Doora Barefield. I'm delighted to be joined by the Naomh Eoin manager this evening, Oliver Keating, to hear his thoughts. And I suppose, Oliver, a strange year in relation to COVID-19. I suppose many clubs, they would have maybe 8, 9, 10 games in a league behind them coming into the championship. I suppose were you one of the lucky teams at the start of the year that got a game in your league action?
We did. We got our first league game, Jim. And sorry, just before we start, I wouldn't call myself the manager, no. I'm merely a selector. But Barry Hart from Kilkee is managing us this year. He's just this year now. This is his first year with us, so we're delighted to have him. But I'm just helping along as the saying goes. Yeah. But yeah, we had one game against Kilfenora, Jim, before the lockdown kicked in. A good game above in Kilfenora. Now we came out the wrong side of that by a point, but a very good competitive game. Now, probably looking back on it, but again, you can't be too critical. The first game of the year, errors probably cost us the game, but you're going to get that early in the season, you know. But it was a very good competitive game now. There always a good old clash between ourselves and Kilfenora when we meet, to be fair, down through the years. There's been many's the good battle, and they came out the right side of this one, but then, of course, everything was thrown up in the air with COVID, so we're kind of back to square one again, if the thing goes.
And I suppose, Oliver, if we can have a quick reflection on back on last year, I suppose you were drawn in the group of death in the intermediate championship with Kildysart and Doora Barefield, and as we sort of know, only two could progress from that sort of time. And the first day out, I suppose, with Kildysart, you wish them nearly a good long stage of the way, and they probably just hit you for a sucker punch. I remember we did that game live on RCB. They hit you for a sucker punch there after half time, and you sort of never really recovered from it. And but I suppose that then you had to pick yourselves up and take on a Doora Barefield side that was fresh and eager to go in the next round before Kildysart and Barefield met the last round. So you had 2 games on the bounce, and I suppose that defeat to Kildysart, I suppose it was probably took an awful lot out of you ahead of that time with Barefield.
It did, all right, Jim. Now, in all fairness, we were very happy with our preparation and everything going into that Kildysart game. We felt we were going to do better than what we did, be nothing but honest. But looking back on that game, but again, Luke just wasn't with us that day. I just looking back at it, I remember we had one very good goal chance early in the game, and I think after 15 minutes we struck the post for another goal chance. Look at on another day, if one of those had gone in, if we were, you know, we were with him up to half time, and as you said, correctly said there, straight after half time they got a goal, and that really knocked the wind out of us now. And as you correctly said, we just didn't recover from it. I suppose from our own point of view, I think the lads were disappointed. We had played some great games through the league last year and the O'Gorman Cup. We made it to the final of the O'Gorman Cup. Lacey Casey beat us in the final, but we played some very, very good football early in the year, and for reasons unknown, we just didn't bring it to the championship games. Unfortunately, now we're hoping to rectify that this year. But now it was a tough group. It's a group no one else would want to be in. The Dysart, they're knocking on the door there with the last 3 or 4 years. They're a formidable outfit, as Doora Barefield are as well. And I suppose, yeah, we were disappointed with how we played against Kildysart, to be nothing but honest. We had a lot of work put in. Patrick Foley was training us. We were as well prepared going into it as I felt we ever were, but it just didn't happen on the day for us. And maybe obviously you have to credit Kildysart for that. Maybe they didn't let us play, but I think I don't think we did ourselves justice personally, and I'd be hoping we can improve on that, you know.
Yeah, and I suppose, Oliver, is it fair to say probably one of your opponents, Doora Barefield, are probably one of the favourites for the championship this year in many people's eyes, along with Kildysart and Corofin, while yourselves and O'Curry's would be seen as dark horses. But you know Barefield, you met them there last year. Some of your youngsters as well would have played an awful lot of them underage, being part of that West Clare amalgamation with Naomh Eoin, O'Curry's Kilkee. So you would have met an awful lot in A championship, an awful lot through the years in underage. You would have a fair sizable contingent of players that were involved in that Naomh Eoin, O'Curry's Kilkee amalgamation, especially in minor A there 1 or 2 years back as well. So you're sort of, for the younger lads are familiar with these sorts of Barefield players as well. And while Barefield are a youth-filled team, ye have an awful lot of youth, but ye probably have a more older lads, more experienced lads, while Barefield are probably all in their 23, 24 sort of bracket.
Well, I presume, yeah, the Barefield team you would be looking at, I'd imagine 90% of those boys are in their late teens or early 20s, or in their 20s at least. But look, I suppose when you have the pick that Barefield have, you have the luxury of being able to pick lads in their mid-20s all the time if you want. We don't have that luxury here, Jim. We have a panel of 21 or 2, and there's no one left after that. So yeah, our panel ranges from 45 down. Be nothing but honest with you, but it is what it is. We're very happy. We're very happy with them. They're a great bunch of lads. They're training well. But yeah, the numbers game is a problem when you're back here. We are a small parish, but that's no excuse for anything. We should have done better than what we did last year, and we didn't. So we're hoping that we'll give a better account of ourselves this year against. We got Barefield obviously in the draw again this year, and yeah, I mean we're obviously underdogs going in. Last year, I think it was 2-12 to 7 or 8 points. They finished up beating us by below and Shannon Gales. We'd be hopeful that's not going to happen again, you know. But again, that takes a lot of things going right for you on the day. But we're working. That's what we're working towards. So yeah, we have a much wider spread. But I mean, in them older lads, you know, the likes of Patrick Foley is involved with us again this year. He's 45. Mike Ladan is in his 40s. But there are still 2 lads a lot of teams would love to have. You know, there's they have a wealth of experience from county level down. So they're great lads to have at training and great lads to have on the line or on the field. They can still make an impact in a game for you, you know. So look, every team would love to have more, and I suppose every club could say, oh, if we had this fella back and if we had that fella back. That's the same for a club like Barefield as it is for a club like Naomh. But we have what we have. They're a good bunch of lads. They're training very well now since we got back. And as I said, we'd be hopeful that we'll give a much better account of ourselves. Obviously, Barefield is a tough draw. There's no point in saying otherwise. The draw could have been a bit kinder to us. But it is what it is. And I don't think our boys have any fear of going playing Barefield again because, again, like Kildysart, I think they know there was more in them last year than what they showed, and we'll be hopeful that they'll show it better for us this year.
Yeah, and I suppose, Oliver, just a quick point in relation to last year's championship as well. Do you think the amalgamation that played in the senior as well, though, Corey's Naomh Eoin amalgamation, that probably it took an awful lot about in terms of energy, in terms of the players and stuff like that? It sort of put a sort of rigorous timeline. And did you start to feel the strain of it as the championship went on, especially the second round of it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, we got to play the intermediate games before the senior, but they were both played the same weekends. I suppose, Jim, from a Naomh Eoin point of view, I'd have called it an unwelcome distraction. I mean, I think it's great for the lads to get a chance to play senior for Naomh Eoin lads and O'Curry lads, and it'll only improve them. But personally, I didn't think the county board did us any favours. Now they could have worked it out to play it in alternative weekends. That you would have intermediate one weekend and you'd have a break for a week. Then
thinking as much.
Your better players have a fair idea they're going to be playing senior championship. If we're playing on a Saturday and they're out again Sunday playing senior championship, that has to affect a player's mindset too. And it might be one of the reasons why, despite the fact that we had played a lot of good football early in the year, when it actually came down to the business in the championship, as you pointed out, we were looking at playing senior and intermediate the same weekend. Or definitely 10 of our lads were involved in it, 10 or 11 or 12 sometimes. So yeah, I don't think it helped now, Jim, be nothing but honest. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I would be for the lads get their opportunity to play, but I think the county board could do an awful lot more to help in that. That it didn't really have to be ran off that you'd have to play on a Saturday and expect to go out play senior football on a Sunday again. It's pushing it a bit too far, you know, would be my opinion. But it probably was, to say it was a distraction would be putting it probably mildly, being honest with you. Yeah.
I suppose, Oliver, just on your opponents, Doora Barefield, I suppose the Hannons that were county members of Collins county squad there a few years, Jack and Tom, the brothers, they're back for Doora Barefield this year. I suppose they're going to be a big bonus to them. And I suppose in terms of Doora Barefield as well, they had three guys actually that were on the Clare under-20s panel, the goalkeeper, Tom O'Brien, and then Keane McDonough and Owen Tyne. Keane McDonough, Clare County Minor in 2018, and Owen Tyne as well. That was in the that had this unreal intermediate championship really last year. Owen Tyne was one of the top scorers. Those guys would have played an awful lot of football with Michael Neelan as well in the terms of the Clare under 20. So some of those young Barefield lads are coming in with a bit of football, and I suppose they'll have one or two playing minor football with like Tony Butler and Ethan Coughlin as well, who are tipped to break onto that team this year. Two promising lads. So they have a sort of rebuild going on in Doora Barefield in terms of they're managing to keep their younger players, and their younger players are beginning to get involved in county squads again. So in terms of Naomh Eoin, you had for a while a good lot of players involved in Clare county squads, but I suppose in terms of that, you probably have no guys with basically that have played any bit of football apart from that league game, I imagine.
We wouldn't have, to be fair. Yeah, we wouldn't have, to be fair. And as you pointed out, Jim, I know the two Hannon boys are they're serious details. They're serious footballers. They'll be a huge addition to Barefield or to any team for that matter. So yeah, Barefield will be seriously strong. I mean, there's no point in saying anything other than we'll be serious underdogs going in against them. But having said that, as I said, I think our game can improve considerably too. So we're working towards that in the hope that it will. But yeah, I mean, you have to give credit to Barefield. They have a lot of work done. I know myself, anytime you pass their field, they have a serious operation running there, and their great credit is due to them for that. And yeah, they have some serious that Owen Tyne he's a serious detail of a young lad. I saw him a couple of times last year now against ourselves, and again in their drawing game against Kildysart, and yeah, he's a fair detail. I can't take that from him now, to be fair. Yeah, he's not going to stop.
And I suppose, Oliver, since you've been back since the last 3 weeks, I've spoken to one or two. I've spoken to nearly all the senior clubs, haven't really been finding it difficult to get challenge matches. A good lot of them have gone outside the county in terms of getting their challenge matches, but they seem to be either playing each other or else playing teams outside the county. In terms of yourselves and being an intermediate club, has it been a struggle to try and get a challenge match against a senior team, or have you opted to go outside the county? I've heard of one or two intermediate teams playing junior A teams in terms of challenge matches, because that's all they could seem to get in the short time period. What's it been like for yourselves?
Yeah, well, it hasn't been bad, Jim. It was a bit of a concern for us, but we were lucky enough. Now, David Russell trained us there for 4 or 5 years, and David's involved with Clare seniors. So we actually 2 weekends ago now we played Clare over in Clare in a good game.
That was a good test.
Yeah, it was. Now we were level at half time. To be honest, Clare they upped the gear in the second half, and we couldn't stick with them. So they probably ran out by they beat us by 6 or 7 points for a finish. A good run out now, and then we played Shannon Gales this Sunday morning or last Sunday morning, and that was a good game over the Gales now as well. We came out the right side of that, but I think, to be fair to the Gales, they were missing a couple of key players, so you wouldn't want to read too much into it. But it was a great challenge game to get, because I wouldn't say we'd be on level par with the Gales. They've done better than us in the last few years, but at least we're boxing somewhere near enough your own weight anyway. So we had looked at getting games, a challenge game in Limerick, and it would have been possible through Mona Lean. But as it turns out now, the O'Gorman Cup has kicked off, and we're playing Lissy Casey next Saturday evening in that. So that's as good a game as you could ask for. Lissy Casey beat us in the O'Gorman Cup final last year. We had a great run in the O'Gorman Cup. No, we beat a lot of big teams and played a lot of good football. And Lissy Casey beat us in the final last year. So looking forward to playing them now Saturday evening. And obviously, if you can get over that game, you'll have another O'Gorman Cup game the week after. So we won't really. We haven't struggled for challenge matches, but maybe we were lucky in comparison to other teams, you know. It just worked out lovely with David Russell's involvement in Clare. He obliged us with a challenge, and then the Gales were looking for a challenge, and that worked out fine that we got to play them. So we have been lucky enough, and as I said, the O'Gorman Cup kicking in now has meant that we didn't have to look for a challenge, obviously, this weekend. And if we can get over Lissy Casey, as I said, that'll continue for another week at least. So we haven't had any problems that way, thankfully. Now, we haven't.
And I suppose, Oliver, have you any sort of new additions to the panel this year? Anyone coming back from overseas that was based abroad that maybe came back due to COVID-19 that has joined up with the panel in recent times, or anyone that was just stopped for some work-related reasons was not available last year, or anyone out with long-term injuries that came back and sort of bolstered your ranks for the year ahead, or any sort of young lad that has turned past the age of 18 that's eligible for adult football now?
We have a few young lads coming through now. Unfortunately, there is 3 of them training with us, and only one of them is actually eligible for us this year, Gillian Hassett. But we have been actually unlucky with one of our players from last year, Douglas Lynch. Douglas is in America, and I suppose it's the wrong thing to say, but we were hoping the COVID thing would bring him home, but it didn't. So we're out Douglas, and unfortunately, another brother of Douglas, Larkin, has actually retired this year. So no, we didn't gain anything this year, unfortunately, Jim. Yeah, we didn't gain anything this year now in the likes of that. Patrick Foley is back training with us. He wasn't playing last year because he was actually managing the team last year, but he's back doing a bit with us. But no, we haven't gained so much in that light now. Only obviously, sure, our younger players are a year more experienced, and you'd be hoping that'll show when it comes to intermediate championship. But sure, time will tell, as the saying goes.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of great former past legends of Clare football, we have to mention Michael Ladan. I suppose Michael Ladan is fair to say that he's not involved with any other adult team this year as well, so he can really concentrate on his football with Naomh Eoin.
That's true, Jim. No, Michael isn't. So yeah, Michael is working in Limerick at the minute now, and he's commuting for a minute. So fair play to him. He's coming back. He's coming back with us at every opportunity now. And yeah, Michael would still have a role to play for us. For a boy of his age, he's in great shape. And obviously, you know, the history, the boy has football oozing out of him. So yeah, there isn't too many, as I said about earlier. There's a lot of clubs that would love to have the likes of Michael Ladan on board with him. He's a great lad around the young lads in training. And you know, it's great to be able to bring him either to start him or to bring him on. He'll always have a positive impact on the game for Naomh Eoin, and he's a serious threat because he's an out and out footballer, really, Jim, to be fair to him, you know. So yeah, we all these boys will be needed if we're going to make an impact this year. And yeah, we're delighted to have Mike on board, and of course it is an advantage to us that he isn't involved in training with anyone else, so he can commit a bit more time to us, which is good news on our side, as the saying goes.
I suppose, Oliver, in terms of the format this year, I suppose it's no group format. Players won't be waiting around for games. It's sort of a championship. It's sort of knockout. It's got the do or die sort of feel to it. I suppose with the format this year, if you win your first game, you're in the hat for the winners round. I suppose if you come to Doora Barefield, you won't matter. You build such a high asset that you won't really take any real notice to who you get in the winners round. But obviously, there is a fear for whoever loses this tie that they will wind up in the losers section. And obviously, one of the favourites for the championship, Kildare or Corfin, will be in that losers pot, and it will come down to a three-way sort of playoff over 2 days. So if you're going to be the 4th team that makes the semi-final, you have to beat either the loser of Kildare or Corfin to get there, more likely, over maybe of a Friday and a Monday over maybe 24-hour period. You have to play 2 games. I suppose with a small group of players, a small panel of 21 players, I suppose it's very much Naomh Eoin are trying to look to go straight through the front door, the less game route to get to county semi-final. And if you get over Barefield and you get an advantageous draw in the winners round, say winners of Kilfenora or Erogue, someone that would be similar, Erogue B that would be similar to yourselves. It really opens up the whole championship for Naomh Eoin, and you get to county semi-final, anything's possible. But lose the first day, and it's like a minefield to try and get back to get to county semi-final.
It is, that's true, Jim. And sure, as you pointed out, like the Kildare Corfin drawing against each other is it is the clash of the first round. It's impossible to call what way that's going to go. But yeah, whoever ends up in the losers group, obviously it is the losers with them. Everyone will be trying to avoid. There's no point in saying otherwise. They're 2 formidable outfits. But yeah, as you rightly pointed out, if we can get over Barefield, there are teams. We'll say the rest of the teams there. We'll say obviously. I mean, Kildare, Jim, I know they beat us last year, but in 2018, in the intermediate championship, we lost by a point to them. But big in an outstanding game of football. That we were ahead for. I suppose we were ahead for 57 or 8 minutes, but we just didn't close them out in the end in a game that we possibly deserve to win, I feel. So, I mean, it isn't as if we'd have a huge fear of Kildare either. But yeah, there's no doubt they're a formidable outfit. But as I said, in 18, if we had played a little bit cleverer, we'd have beaten them. I think a few of them would have no problem admitting that themselves, that we just didn't close down the game when maybe we were dealing with a lot of younger players, and maybe if we had a bit more experience on the field, we were 2 points up with 3 or 4 minutes to go, and we ended up losing by a point. So yeah, it was a game that with a bit more experience we could have closed out. So yeah, we wouldn't. I mean, you'd have respect for teams, but you wouldn't. It's no point in having a fear of any of them, you know. But I mean, obviously, it'll be a big ask to get over Barefield, and it would be the way you'd like to do it, as you say. It would keep your route to the semi-final as direct as possible. But we'll have to see what happens. If we don't beat Barefield, you're going to have to gather yourself and see what you get in the draw. As I said, for everyone that will be on the loser side of the draw. Will want to avoid whoever loses between Kildysart and Corofin, and I suppose everyone on the winner side of the draw will want to avoid whoever wins between Kildysart and Corofin. You know, I mean, they're two formidable outfits. There's no point in saying otherwise. So that's something we don't have control over. So we'll just have to go with it, isn't it?
And I suppose, Oliver, just on that point, it's just important to clear up that of the winner sort of round, the 3 teams will take the semi-finalists, and whoever comes through the sort of losers round, only 1 team can come through that. So obviously, if all the teams are divided in the losers round, obviously only 1 team can come out of that sort of pot. So obviously, you were saying the winners round, if you get to a semi-final, if you're one of those 3 teams, you have the luxury of getting more training under your belt. You have the luxury of going and watching that 3-way playoff and sizing up your opponents. But just one quick thing about that: the team that comes through from that sort of 3-way playoff, is there anything to say that they'll probably have the advantage going into semi-final, because they'll be carrying savage momentum? They'll probably have 3 championship games won on the bounce in short successive time, and probably a week then or 2 weeks to prepare for semi-final, while the teams that go the direct route, I know it's the obvious route, but they probably won't be carrying the same momentum as the team that comes through the back door.
Oh, without a doubt, that's true, Jim. I mean, you can't ask for better than competitive games. And obviously, if you end up coming from the loser side and make it to the semi-final, it means you won your competitive games. So yeah, you'd be hitting into a semi-final. It would be a beautiful way to be in the semi-final, but a difficult way to get into the semi-final.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, by the time you get to the semi-final stage, if you have come through that, what we'll call the losers group, you'll have a lot of good games played, and that should give you an advantage going into the semi-final. But there's no doubt it's a more difficult way of going about it, but probably a better way of being there would be the way I'd put it now.
Yeah. On that note, Oliver Keating, a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you and the rest of the Naomh Eoin management team a very prosperous 2020 Intermediate Championship. Hopefully, come October, when it's all said and done, you'll look back on the 2020 Intermediate Football Championship. We'll have fond memories, and you'll achieve the targets that you set out to achieve as management, players, and Naomh Eoin supporters as well. And what has been a difficult time and difficult year for everyone involved in terms of health concerns and risks throughout the county. Just the thoughts being back on the playing fields. Hopefully, come October, you'll have fond memories of the playing fields in terms of the Intermediate Championship. So all we can say from us here at RCB Sport, best of luck, Oliver, and we hope it's a very prosperous Intermediate football campaign for you.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Jim.